Hi, in this next section we will go over how to prepare for your intervention lessons. We're going to spend about 30 minutes on this section. Here are today's objectives. Remember, as the saying goes, one must expect to win, plan to win, but also prepare to win. In this part of today's training, we're going to learn how to prepare for burst lessons. And specifically, you will learn to access burst lessons, understand the structure of a 10-day burst and the structure of a lesson, use the structure of a lesson to prepare, and identify, locate, and prepare materials. As we go through this session, keep your handout document handy. To access your burst lessons, you can follow the 6 steps listed here. First, log into mCLASS.amplify.com. Click on the reading tile. Then, click on the mCLASS intervention tile on the right of the plumb bar. Click on See Groups and Lessons. Select your semester and group name from the drop-down menus. Then, select View or Save As to access your 10-day burst and supplemental resources.
Let me show you how to access your burst lessons. Log into mclass.amplify.com, and once on the home page, find the reading tile. Click on it, then click on Intervention, and then click on See Groups and Lessons. Once here, make sure you are looking at the right semester. Here is the group drop-downs. You will see all your groups here. And let's start with To Hand Group 5. I'm going to click on Download to get my 10-day burst. I'll also click on Download to get the supplemental resources I need for the lessons. If I click on the lesson file name at the bottom of the browser, the lessons open in a new tab. The same thing happens when I click on the file name for the supplemental resources. They'll open in a new tab. And then your next step is going to be to repeat these steps with your other groups. So you'll go to the group drop-down and select the group that you want to get lessons for next.
To print or not to print? That is the question. And the answer? Well, that's really up to you. You can print out your burst lessons, or you can save them to your laptop or iPad. It's really up to you, and either is fine. But remember, burst lessons are rarely repeatable or reusable, so you might want to save them to an electronic device. There will be times, though, that you want to print out materials for your students. For example, you might need to print out an activity sheet for your kiddos. But we can talk about this at a later time. Let's take a look at what is inside a burst. Here you'll see a 10-day roadmap. And before we delve into what is on this roadmap, let's remind ourselves about what is a burst. A burst has a set of lessons that our data analysis algorithm compiled for a specific set of students at a specific point in time. And because every small group is likely to have different needs at any one point in time, it is really rare that 2 bursts will ever be identical. A typical burst can also be about 50 pages long. But don't panic, remember, this is for 10 days, so that's about 5 pages per day. In your handouts, I've taken some pages from a group's bursts. The first page is a 10-day roadmap, and it's a great way to get an overview of a burst. You can find this on page 1 of your handout. Okay, let's orient ourselves to what's in this roadmap. First, you'll see the skills that students are working on. Here you'll see they're working on phonological awareness and letter sound knowledge. If you look at day 9, it's an example of how the other days are also structured. You'll see that each day the lesson has 5 parts: A, B, C, D, and E. And then you'll notice on day 10 this structure is not there, and that's because on day 10 we hold it so that educators can progress monitor their students. Let's see how the lessons progress in a lesson and throughout the 9 days. Look at day 1. This group begins with being introduced to phoneme segmentation, and you'll notice as the lesson progresses, the phonological awareness activities also increase in complexity. This also occurs as the days progress. Let's look at day 6. Now students are introduced to phoneme substitution and phoneme substitution accuracy. And then by day 9, students are working on last sound and middle sound segmentation accuracy. Another feature you want to know about the roadmap is that it will show you that you'll introduce and reintroduce content. For example, on day 2, we introduce students to the sound and then on day 3, we reintroduce our students to the sound This is because, as humans, we rarely learn things in one sitting, and these multiple exposures are really important to help build our students' literacy skills. Okay, now that we've oriented ourselves to the 10-day roadmap, let's take a deeper dive into day 9, and for this, you'll need page 3 of your handout. Alright, let's dive into lesson 9, and for this, you'll need your handout pages 3 through 7. I'd like for you to pause your screen and answer these 3 questions. Take about 5 minutes, and then unpause, and we can get the answers. Alright, the answer to the first question is that there's a page for each activity, 9A, 9B, 9C, 9D, and 9E. And how many minutes does it take to teach each section? About 5 to 8 minutes. And finally, how many minutes does it take to teach the entire lesson? And the answer there is 30 minutes. Let's dive a little bit more deeply and look at lesson part 9B. There are 5 questions on the right of the screen. Again, pause the screen and take about 5 to 10 minutes to find the answers to these questions, and then unpause and we can find out the answers. Alright, what is the goal of this activity? If you said something like, given a spoken word, the student can identify its middle sound, then you answered correctly. And the answer to what is the purpose of the model section versus the practice section, if you said something similar to model is the I do portion, practice is the you do portion, then give yourself a pat on the back. You got the right answer. And for question 3, are there any parts of this lesson that an interventionist might find tricky? Well, there could be many answers, but one might be providing more support for kids who need it or challenging those who are ready for more difficult challenges. And for question 4, what purpose do support and challenge serve? If you said something along the lines of, the support is for students who need a bit more scaffolding, and the challenge is for students who are a bit ahead, then you got the right answer. And finally, what materials are required for this activity? If you said basket and picture cards, you got the right answer. And you can give yourself a bonus point if you also name those picture cards as cat, dog, duck, fish, fox, hat, lock, mop, nose, rat, 6, and van. Alright, thanks for studying this activity in detail. We're going to have a chance to see it delivered in the Teaching with Burst module. We're about to watch our interventionist Florence prepare for a lesson. But before we do that and walk through how to prepare for an mCLASS intervention lesson, I'd like to invite you to think about, how did you prepare to deliver intervention lessons last school year? Think about the systems, the curriculum, and the steps you took to get ready. Feel free to pause your screens. Alright, now that we've reflected on this, let's move on to Florence. We're going to watch her prepare for a lesson, the same one you have in your handout. It's for day 9. And before I hit play, please turn to page 8 in your handout. This will list the recommended steps to use to prepare for a lesson. I'll give you a moment to get to page 8. Alright, now we can watch Florence, and also you can follow along with your handout. You'll see that each burst will give you an overview of the materials that need to be pulled out for each day. This can be found on the second page of your burst. In your handout, it's also on page 2.
Hi guys, my name is Florence and I'm going to take you through the prepping steps for each of your burst lessons. So the first thing we're going to do is look at page 2 of our burst, which has the set of materials that we need. Now today I'm prepping for day 9. So here are the specific materials that I will need for day 9. So I see that I need picture cards for activities A, B, and E. I need a board to write on and letter cards as well. So let's start with, in order, with activity A. So let me look at my burst Florist kit and locate where the picture cards are. Now in the front, you'll see that it has an icon showing which cards are in which drawer. So picture cards are in this drawer. I always find it easier to just pull the entire drawer out. And there's a special trick for picture cards that you need to learn because it'll make your life much easier. So I'm going to take a Post-it here, and the first card in your set of picture cards will show you the name of the picture card as well as a number. And these picture cards are actually numbered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just write down the number of the picture cards and then I'll pull them much faster. So for activity A, I need ant. So ant is number 2. I need bag, 5. Cow is 12. Horse is 34. Jump is 42. Right, so that's for activity A. And since this is already out, I'm going to do the same for activity B. Alright, that's it. So let me now pull the cards out of the stack of cards. And I also usually find it easier to put the cards back later when I mark the card behind. So for picture cards, I'm going to put a Post-it. Here is my stack of materials for activity A. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in my accordion folder under activity A. Here. I'm going to do the same thing for activity B and pull my cards. That's 87. Van. Oh, okay. So I already had pulled out the picture of the van for activity A. So let me go ahead and find that picture in here. So here's van. And what I'm going to do is, in order to remember to keep this card for activity B, I'm just going to put a little Post-it in the back. And write B on there. And that way I'll remember that I'm using it for 2 different activities.
Alright, we're going to continue to watch our interventionist Florist prep for a lesson. This is going to be for lesson 9B, which is also in your handout on page 4. In this portion, she's going to focus on an unfamiliar activity. I'm going to ask you to pause your screen and actually look over this first lesson on page 4 before we watch the video. When you're done reading over the lesson, feel free to unpause your screen and watch the video.
And now that I'm done pulling the materials, I am going to take a closer look at what the day entails, what the activities are. So I'm familiar with activity A, I've taught it before. I'm familiar with C, we introduced sounds, and I've also done letter sound accuracy activities. I am unfamiliar with day 9 activity B, which is middle sound segmentation accuracy. So I'm going to take a closer look at that lesson to see what exactly it is. So let me go to day 9B. So here's 9B. And we want students to identify the middle sound in words. So I have materials that I've already pulled. Now let me actually, I'm actually going to act out this lesson and practice it on my own since this is the first time that I've seen it. So I need my basket, and here are my cards. Place the empty basket in the center of the circle. Place all of the picture cards in front of the student. Okay, so let me place those in front. Right. And I will say, let's pretend we're a sound detectives. We need to find pictures to fill up our basket. I'm going to say a sound and I want you to find which picture has that sound in the middle. My turn first. The sound is like in the word lab. I'm going to be a detective and search for the picture that has the sound in the middle. I found the picture of cat. Okay, so here's cat. Cat has the sound in the middle. Cat. It's a great sound active. I can place. Okay. I think I'm prepared for this activity, so I'm going to take the cards back and put them back
for day 9. Right here.
We saw Florence prep by gathering cards from her kit and printing supplemental resources. Some lessons might require passages and other materials. You can find those by clicking Materials for Lessons, highlighted in the red box. When you do, it will take you to a page that looks like this. Here, you can see the materials are organized by skill. You can find the materials by clicking on the skill of the activity and navigating to the resource. To save your burst lessons, use the following steps. Again, feel free to pause your screen. First, log into mclasshome.amplify.com. Second, click the Reading or mCLASS Amplify Reading Edition tile. Third, click on Intervention. Fourth, click on See Groups and Lessons. Fifth, select your semester and group name from the drop-down menus. And finally, select View PDF or Download to access your 10-day burst and supplemental resources. Thanks for learning with us today. I'd love to review some of the key takeaways. First of all, the eternal question, to print or not to print. You can do both, print them or use a laptop, whichever is best for you. Also, remember that we all must prepare to win, and it's a great idea to skim your lesson before you deliver it. As you skim, visualize yourself doing the activities in the lesson and look for things you might find to be tricky to deliver. And finally, remember that things always get easier. Once you get used to burst, daily prep should take no more than 10 minutes per group. Thanks, and happy teaching.